What's up guys, Drake here with another historical overview of a car in the game Need for Speed. Today we're talking about the AC Cobra.wmv. History and development. Like many British specialist manufacturers, AC Cars has been using the smooth, redefined Bristol straight 6 engine in small volume productions, including its AC Ace 2-seater roadster. This had a hand-built body with a steel tube frame, aluminium body panels that were made using English wheeling machines. The engine was a pre-World War II design BMW, which by the 1960s was considered dated. Bristol decided in 1961 to cease production of the engine and instead to use a Chrysler 331 CID 5.4-litre V8 engine. Although untrue, it is commonly believed that A3 was left without a future source of power and that an American ex-race driver, Shelby, saved the company from bankruptcy. AC started using a 2.6-litre Ford Zephyr engine in his cars. In September 1961, Shelby emailed AC a letter asking them if they would build him a car modified to accept a V8 engine. In 1961, Shelby emailed AC a letter asking them if they would build him a car modified to accept a V8 engine. AC agreed provided suitable engines could be found. He first went to Chevrolet to see if they would provide him with an engine, but not wanting to add competition to the Corvette, they said no. Ford, however, wanted a car that would compete with the Corvette, and they happened to have a brand new thin-wall small block engine which could be used in this endeavor. It was the Ford 260 inch cubed, which was HRPO 4.2-litre engine, a new lightweight thin-walled car small block V8 tuned for high performance. Ford provided AC with two 260CR engines. In January 1962, mechanics at the AC Cars in Thames Deaton showed fitted the prototype chassis CSX0001 with a 260CR Ford V8. The 221CR was never sent, however early engineers' drawings were titled AC Ace 3.6. After testing the modifications, the engine and transmissions were removed and the chassis was air freighted to Shelby in Los Angeles. On the 2nd of February 1962, his team fitted it with an engine and transmission in less than 8 hours at Dean Moon's shop in Santa Fe Spring, California, and began road testing. Chassis numbering. AC system was as following. The Ace chassis numbers read AEX, A being the car series and X being the export with left-hand drive. Later, the introduction of the Bristol engine and chassis numbers ran BEX when the switching of the Ford 2.6 engine and the Ace chassis number ran RS. The route speed at Kenwood may have been influential in the choice of engines. Production proved to be easy since AC had already made most of its modifications needed for the small block V8 when they installed a 2.6-litre Ford Zephyr engine, including the extensive reworking of the AC's frame, front and end. The most important modification was the fitting of a stronger rear differential and handle the increased engine power. The Salisbury 4HU unit was in-broad disc brakes to reduce the in-sprung weight was chosen instead of the old ENV unit. It was the same unit used on the Jaguar E-Type. On the production versions, the in-broad brakes were moved outboard to reduce cost. The only modification of the front end of the first Cobra from that of the AC 2.6 was a steering box which had to be moved outwards to clear the wider V8 motor. The first 75 Mark I Cobra, including the prototype, was fitted with a 260 engine 4.2-litre. The remaining 51 Mark I models were fitted with a large version of the Windsor Ford engine and the 289 in 4.7-litre V8. Late in 1962, Alan Turner, AC's chief engineer, completed the major design changes in the car's front end and was able to fit it with a rack and pinion steering while still using transverse leaf spring suspensions. The new car entered production in 1963 and designers of the Mark II, the steering rack was borrowed from the MGB, whilst the new steering column came from the Volkswagen Beetle. About 528 Mark II Cobras were produced in the summer of 1965. The last US-bound Mark II was produced in November 1964. Since the late 62, when the new GM Stingray was shown up briefly by the Mk1 Cobra until hub failure intervened, the development of the Grand Sport Corvette program had continued at a pace and was thought to be going for a build series of 125 cars. This would allow GM to compete directly with the FIA GT class of racing. Just too compound, this Enzo Ferrari was trying to pull another fast one on the FIA with the request of a homologation of the 250 LM. The FIA had not forgotten the serious lack of production of the 250 GTO, which it had granted homologation in advance to Enzo assured 100 minimum per year. Just 36 were produced over 3 years with two very different chassis, neither of which were too similar to the 250 GT, which was supposed to form the basis of the vehicle. In an effort to prepare for the task ahead, alternative engines were considered. Whilst the 289 CI, the CRD Leaf Spring Cobra, was totally dominant in the US Domestic Race Series (USRRC), with only one race lost in the 3 years of racing, the situation in the FIA GT class was different. It was mainly due to the number of circuits which allowed for much higher sustained speeds. Here aerodynamics took a greater hand and put the Roadster at a disadvantage. This was the reason why AC Shelby and Wilnut team started building their coupes. However, with the inclusion of the Grand Sport Corvette, this would likely change the dominance. A Stroker 289, 325, 351 and a larger 390, 427 up to the Kamer 427 was considered. This had a knock-on effect that was simply no time to productionize a vehicle which was all that it was hoped to have been in terms of competition. The coil spring Cobra started to roll slowly off the line, but it was clear that there was not going to be a sufficient production to satisfy the FIA's granting of the GT homologation. Therefore, the SE Street competition was produced by making available to the general production the full race options for the street. By now, Enzo was having races recategorized in Italy to prevent the almost inevitable defeat on home soil, as a 250 LM was not homologated as a GT and would have to run as a prototype. GM had pulled the plug on the Grand Sports, and so 5 chassis that had been built had to run as prototypes, and so were placed in a difficult position to say the least. Anyway, to cut a long story short, this car was totally unbeatable. It was one of the best racing cars out there. Nothing could catch up to it. Right now it retails for about $1.5 million if you manage to get your hands on one of these rare beauties. And right, this was Drake, over and out.